Welcome to Hope Through the Hard, a curated coalition podcast where we talk honestly about life struggles and how to face them in healthy, hope-filled ways. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul says, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." That's the purpose of this space. Real conversations about the hard things in life and the hope that carries us through. Visit curatedcoalition.com to find our coaching services and book a free consultation.
Hi, I'm Levi. This is Ashley, and we have Lincoln running production today. Kid question.
And Lovey, who has not had a walk, is a little bit crazy.
What was your least favorite time of the year as a kid?
Oh, winter. Anytime it snowed.
Mine would be when school started.
Oh, no, I didn't hate that. I didn't mind that.
I hated that.
I know.
School start means I have to sit in a class and
Yeah.
not cool. No fun.
No, I didn't mind that. I enjoyed that all right. So it is almost Christmas. And I think that our family, you and I, we love Christmas because it feels warm and it feels sacred. John 1:14 says, "The word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth." And I love that. But what we forget, I think, is that the people in the story were people.
Correct.
And they had real lives. And that was always one of my favorite things to do as a history teacher, was to think about, beyond what we know, what were these people like? What were their lives like? How did the little snippet that we see of them in history, how did that really shape who they were? Who were they outside of that slice of time? And so we're going to just kind of dive in a little bit to Mary and Joseph today as part of our Christmas story. And I think that we're going to see that while their journey was a miracle and it was holy, it was probably also terrifying for them.
Oh, big time.
And so because they weren't just stepping straight into peace, which is, I mean, that's what we sing, that's what we hear, that's what the story is for us.
Correct.
But for them, they were stepping into risk and shame and misunderstanding, but their obedience made room for the greatest hope that the world has ever known.
Right.
It's the hope that we cling to every day. And so the question that we're going to kind of think about is not just what happened then, but how does their obedience teach us what we should be doing now?
Right. Yeah. And God bursts his greatest accomplishments through that uncomfortable obedience, right? Not the ideal circumstance. God is in control and does amazing things because it's only him who's able to do it. Mary and Joseph didn't overcome one obstacle. Yeah. They navigated through personal fear, through relationship strains, cultural issues, and spiritual surrender for everything in that.
Yeah, and all at the same time.
It
was like all of those things were happening for them all at once. And I think when you feel like you're in the middle of a storm, it's easy to forget that we aren't the first ones that God has called to be in the middle of something holy. And our response is what matters.
Right.
And so the first obvious person that we're going to look at in this Christmas story was Mary.
Okay.
And I love that she obeyed before she understood. I felt like God has been calling us to do things in the last year that we didn't understand. And it's just taking one more tiny step of faith at a time.
Yep.
So when we think about Mary, obviously we know what we know about her, and there's great tradition around her, and there's so much that can be talked about. I think The Chosen does a great job showing her as a mother of an adult child. But when the story started, she was young, she was unmarried, and she was vulnerable.
Yeah.
When she said yes, okay, Lord, I will do this for you. When Gabriel came to her and she said, okay, yes, I will do this because you are calling me to, she was risking her reputation.
Yeah.
personal safety and her sense of belonging within her community, which is huge
Yeah.
for a young Jewish girl. She had no guarantees that everything would be okay. She just had the word of an angel.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to read Luke 1, verses 37 and 38, because I love Mary's response here. It says, "For nothing will be impossible with God." And Mary said, "Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word." And the angel departed from her.
Yeah. And that's, again, Mary didn't feel safe, and that's why she followed. She followed out of obedience and trusting God. Yeah, I'd love to have an angel come and tell us.
Yeah. Do this, Levi.
Might
Do
make
this,
it a little
Ashley.
easier,
Yeah.
but there was still some uncertainty and not safeness that's going through all of that because they weren't married.
Yeah.
And so, and leads into the next one of Joseph and what he had to surrender, and with his obedience cost him his ego. It wasn't a simple thing
Couldn't
of
be prideful.
right, and it cost him that, and cost with he gave his faith.
Yeah.
I'm giving to God everything I actually have, and I'm going to trust Him. He didn't have to marry Mary, and it meant a whole lot of different things. Legally, he could have gotten in a lot of trouble. There's things of what they could have come after him for, and then all of a sudden he has to then take on God's son, which is intimidating.
Yeah.
God, I'm going to raise your son, and that's scary.
Yeah.
But then also providing for him and taking care of him and humbling yourself enough to say, yeah, I will be obedient and I will follow you. And this is the cool stuff of whenever the angel appeared to Joseph and he said, "Do not be afraid, take Mary as your wife." And then he just honors God with everything that he has and puts aside his ego, has humility, and follows.
Yeah. Can you imagine having a perfect child, like an actual, like one of our sons being right all the time, and you just having to be like, "Okay, son, I mean,
Yeah.
you are the son of God,
Right.
so I'll take your word for it." That would be an incredibly humbling experience.
Yeah. Well, me and a friend were talking today and talking about teaching Jesus to walk.
Yeah.
And then you put him on water, and does he keep walking on that? Is one of his main chores filling up all the pitchers of water for everybody.
I just make some more wine, son. Yeah,
that's right.
It's. I mean, thinking about Joseph and the amount of humility he had to have is incredible because truly, he modeled a faith. I mean, we really know very little about him from this story. He obeyed when no one was applauding him. He obeyed when no one was giving him accolades. He obeyed when history records very little about him, except that he said yes, and he was a carpenter.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we know about him.
And he was there through the birth, and they lost him.
Yeah. He lost the Son of God.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
That's the only time you really hear anything else about Joseph.
But it's abundantly clear that heaven moved in order to get, on behalf of this man, and that he was an exceptional man because he is the one that God chose to raise his only son. So it's an incredible, while also incredibly humbling in the practicality. It's a beautiful story.
Yeah, because this is some of the hard
Yeah.
that we want to talk about before we kind of get to the hope of what leads into the future of everything.
Yeah.
So it's so cool to kind of read through some of this stuff because there were some major obstacles that they faced.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so social shame and misunderstanding. Never had there been a virgin birth in the past, present, probably, or in the future. But it's likely that a lot of people misunderstood the situation and judged them for that.
Yeah. I can't imagine the judgment that they probably faced for that. They were also violating the religious purity laws. Leviticus 18 and 20 lay out every single aspect of sexual purity. and what was required of a young Jewish couple, or a Jewish person at all. And they were going against those.
Yeah. Financial security as well, because now you're upheaving everything and leaving. Joseph was a carpenter, and for God and small family and the advantages being far, far from home was not great.
Yeah.
He probably left everything as they left to raise Jesus in a different land. And so, financially.
Yeah, because the
It's a
first
struggle.
few years of Jesus's life, they were in Egypt.
Right.
They had to flee.
Right.
And so, I mean, which is another like major obstacle, their physical safety.
Right.
I mean, just thinking about what Mary had to endure as a pregnant woman, traveling to another city to have this baby, leaving her family, giving birth in a fairly unsanitary place,
Bethlehem, yeah.
without a lot of support.
Right.
Well, I mean, just unsanitary. Like they were in a manger, like they were in an animal stable. And so that's not super sanitary. And like a lot of infection grows. So there was the physical safety in traveling while you're that pregnant and giving birth in unsanitary conditions. After the baby was born, there was the danger of Herod wanting to kill, because the wise men told
Showed up.
him that a king had been born,
Right.
and then he's, ego is burst, and he needs to kill all the babies so that he doesn't lose his position and power. So that requires, again, Joseph to obey the word of the Lord and go to Egypt.
Right.
So there's more travel. And I mean, just nursing a baby, that's hard to do when you don't have adequate food. They were essentially homeless. I mean, like just the physical strain on the little family was huge.
Which is cool to see how God takes care of them.
Yeah.
Yes, they went to Bethlehem for the census. Yes, they had a baby there. I'm sure they had some money, but
Yeah.
it is also a crowded area. Don't know how long they were really in Bethlehem.
Yeah.
It was probably for a little bit, because you're not just going to immediately travel back home. And then instead they're then heading to Egypt for protection, because Rome is in power and in control and running him out.
Yeah. They also really, they were alone.
Mm-hmm.
They probably did not have an extended support,
Right.
like extended family support network, that they could rely on, because they were fairly nomadic for the first few
Right.
years. So they were probably pretty alone.
Yeah. And what's cool with the story is the obedience.
Yeah.
No matter what, they said yes, and then they let it stay. They didn't go, oh, this got hard, now I'm going to back out. Because what they're doing is they changed not just their time frame of their life, but the rest of the world forever as well.
Yeah.
And so it's a cool story of how hope has changed and entered into humanity through two people who, not really understanding the full outcome, said yes.
Yeah. And I think that the same thing is true for us today.
Mm-hmm.
People still are entrusted with big jobs.
Right.
God still gives people who are willing to obey him a position, and he puts us in hard places and asks us to do hard things.
Right. Every day, whether we realize those situations are going to affect now or in the future.
Yeah. And our response matters.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, one of the things that this story this week, as I was thinking about the story of the birth of Jesus and how great a story it really is. And I was leaning into Mary and Joseph and all of the hope that they've given us as people in the year 2025 going into 2026, is just that their obedience didn't end with them.
Correct.
And so in my Bible study, we're doing deep in the Old Testament, and we had just finished right before we took our Christmas break a little study on Ezra. And by little study, it was not a little study. It was very in depth. But the last few chapters of Ezra were really a lot to think about, because the last few chapters deal with Ezra telling the leaders of Israel that they had to separate from their wives who worshiped idols, that there had to be like a physical separation. And many of those men had children with their wives who worshiped idols.
Right.
And so they lost their children. Those children lost family connection. Those children lost their fathers. Those children lost so many things. And the focus of that was really just thinking about how our sin has an effect on everyone around us, and that it affects our children and it affects our grandchildren, because the choices that we make have consequences. This is the exact opposite. Their obedience had a ripple effect that touched the entire world. Mary and Joseph were able to say yes, and that allowed us to have the hope of the Messiah. And so it's just a totally opposite situation. And it was really revolutionary for me to think this week that while the same thing is true about sin, our good choices also have the potential to have great consequences, and our obedience builds a legacy.
Right. And the same as us as parents have a massive effect on our kids today. And same as what Mary and Joseph had. So with their choices, making the decision at that moment played a big part in this spiritual inheritance that we all got to have.
Yeah.
Same as whenever we take our kids to church, whenever we do Bible studies, whenever we encourage it's the same thing that'll follow down unto them.
Yeah.
Our obedience of saying yes to God is the same as theirs of being born and creating an environment for Jesus to be raised in.
Yeah.
And the same as what we choose in our environment to raise our kids in. And legacy doesn't just start with the influence. It starts with being faithful.
Yep.
And unseen decisions day in and day out that we make on purpose.
Right.
To show I'm obedient to God. Nobody might see this stuff, same as what Joseph did.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be obedient because I understand here's the legacy of what we really want to have in our family, and to follow God in every step we do.
Yeah. So building on that, just thinking about what did their obedience actually create? Well, a home where God's voice was trusted.
Yeah.
Which is huge. A family that leaned into humility and also courage and also surrender, which seem like they wouldn't all go together, but they do so beautifully in this. And then you have a child that was raised in obedience and in prayer and in surrender to God's word. And so.
Yeah. And Jesus got to see a lot of this cool stuff growing up as well. And so he watched obedience modeled daily from his parents.
Yeah.
And that's how legacy is formed. It's how parents respond to under pressure.
Yeah.
When tough times happen, especially, we all of a sudden have to move to Egypt. That's some pressure.
Yeah.
Or how are we going to survive when times are rough with money? And what they value, what costs them. And what they put their focus on, and how they continually trust God in every circumstance was huge to be able to build not just for Jesus, but also for his brothers and sisters.
Yeah, because he does have brothers and sisters that, we get them in the epistles.
Right.
We learn more about his siblings through the epistles, but those siblings were also raised in this environment. And that is seen so beautifully in the later epistles in the Bible. So Mary and Joseph probably never imagined how many generations would be changed by their lives, by their obedience, by them saying, "Yes, Lord, let it be to me as you have said." They probably never thought about how many people would be healed and redeemed and restored I mean, they knew they were saying yes to the Messiah, but to think about the throngs in heaven that will be there because they said yes to something hard.
Right.
I can't imagine that they thought that far ahead, at least not initially.
Right.
Maybe later, but they probably never thought about how 2,000 years later people would be sitting around being thankful for their obedience. But that's it. That's their obedience is the very place that allowed hope to grow for the rest of us. And so what I want us to consider is that we might never see the full impact that our obedience has. We probably can't imagine what our obedience will look like, what the ripple effect will be, but God does.
Right.
God is building something, and he is aware, and he is ready to use the foundation that we plant today to build something beautiful on tomorrow with our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren.
Yeah. Well, and the people that we are serving day
Yeah.
in and day out,
Yeah.
whether it's in ministry or just somebody that we see on the side of the road, as well as we are building a legacy, not just for the people in our house, but also those around. I think is so cool because Mary and Joseph were not perfect. So
No.
it's okay
Yeah.
to look at this story and go, okay, they weren't perfect. And so I don't have to be perfect either. And they were just faithful.
Right.
And so they didn't control everything. They chose just obedience. They didn't have the control to be able to say, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, which we would love to be able to say, well, Jesus is my son.
Yeah.
Jesus, zap that person over there. Yeah, that's not going to happen. They chose obedience for what God's plan was.
Yeah.
Legacy isn't built flawless parent or your flawless faith, because sometimes we don't feel faithful enough to God, even though he's continually obedient to us and giving us the choices. And we're going to make bad choices.
Yeah.
And that's okay because God has a mass amount of grace, and what he's asking for us is just to surrender to him.
Yeah. So some things that I thought we could think about as we move into Christmas week are what kind of legacy are we building today with our obedience? Just everyday simple obedience. What is that legacy building? What values am I modeling
Right.
when life is inconvenient and when life is uncomfortable? Because we're going to face things in the next year that are going to feel inconvenient and that are going to feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Another question, what might God be doing through me that's going to outlive me?
Yeah.
So
huge.
those are some things that I think we can just think
great
about.
Great
Yeah.
questions to kind of focus on that of during this time of year and in our rough times of what I'm struggling with and what does God have? Because we have to have hope. And how does that hope show up into those situations? Hope didn't just show up in a manger
Yeah.
and just appear in one time frame. Hope showed up. Hope was protected, nurtured, and stewarded throughout faithful people. Mary and Joseph reminds us of that.
Right.
Those God
Right.
entrusted legacy through obedience, not the impression
Yeah.
of, hey, look how impressive those people are. And therefore I'm going to just bless those people and just have hope for those people. He chose two teenagers to bring hope into the world and give us all of that. And so,
And not rich, wealthy, prestigious teenagers. These were just
Kids.
normal kids. Yeah. So I think that it's good to remember too that God works generationally, not just right here, right now, that he thinks big. He thinks outside of time. He's patient. And he's not bound by our 24-hour day and, our timeline and the things that we know have to be accomplished in a day. That's not how God works. He's willing to wait generations and to accomplish a goal. That's what he did with Israel. It was thousands of years from the time he told Abraham, I'm going to build a people through you,
right.
until he talks to Mary through Gabriel and says, will you say yes
Right.
to having the Messiah. Like there was thousands of years of history. He's patient. He's willing to wait. And so we have to trust him if we want to be, if we want to build our own legacy when we're thinking about those things, because their yes didn't just, they weren't just saying yes to a child. They were saying yes to hope for the world. Right. And so God is probably asking you to say yes to something bigger than you can think about too.
Yeah. And that's one of the big things we want to tell you is that we're talking through the stories. Mary and Joseph were not perfect, and we don't expect anybody to be perfect. But God has chosen a story that we get to read about hope. And there's hope that happens in your life each and every day as well. And we want to encourage you to take some time to trust God in this situation of what we're reading, taking this black and white story and putting some color into it to show this is still interacting. God is still working in everyday life, real people just like you, just like us. And we want to encourage you to take the stand to be obedient. Take the stand to look at the things of what's going on in your life today, what's happening today, and how can I give hope to somebody else or show obedience to God today in my choices. And maybe that's just reading the Bible for the first time. Maybe that's just taking some time to just pray to God. Just start and see what God can do through you being obedient today and how that legacy continues to grow as you continue to bless others with what he is doing, because he's not just wanting you to be quiet. Ask him what your next step is and let you just be obedient in whatever direction he takes you.
Yeah. So I think that's part of what I've always tried to do is to think about these are real people. They really existed. They were asked to do something hard, but also hopeful, something beautiful, but also terrifying, something humbling, but also incredibly glorifying. I mean, it's just such a dichotomy to think about. And so picturing yourself as part of the story or pulling out a little nugget of truth from every Bible story, that's the whole point. Like God, it's a living book.
Right.
It's an active book.
Yep.
God is going to use it if you ask him to teach you something every time you read a passage. And so think about, as you read this Christmas story this week, where do you see yourself in the story? Is he asking you to trust him more fully with something that's really hard?
Right.
Maybe.
Right. Well, and part of being obedient sometimes puts us into what may be costly right now, whether that's money, just giving money whenever you don't really feel like you have it, or maybe God's calling you to go somewhere else. And we've been there in that situation where it's like God's shutting a door on this job.
Yeah.
And he's done that multiple times. And it's like, okay, yes, it's time to go somewhere else. I don't know how I'm going to financially do it. I don't know how we're going to survive, but God's in control and I'm just going to be obedient.
Yeah. Another thing is, I see myself in Joseph. I have a fear of man.
Yeah.
I care about what people think about me, and God might be asking you to think about, are you really concerned about other people's opinions, or are you concerned about God's opinion?
Right. Yeah. Another spot of sometimes we kind of need to ask, how are things going? Am I being obedient by how comfortable I am? If I'm really comfortable with the situations of what's going on in my life, then I might not be doing what all God's wanting me to do. And because we get into a comfort level of maybe it's rest, and there's seasons of those.
Thankfully.
But sometimes it's, no, I'm comfortable here in my little warm little spot, and I don't want to go serve these kids in this ministry. I don't want to go do this extra thing with my kid. I don't want to spend this extra time doing this stuff. And so it's a good question to be able to kind of say, am I just being obedient, or am I just trying to be comfortable and sit in my comfy spot?
Yeah. Another thing is just thinking about all of the ways that we resist. And because it's easy to get lost in the fear that comes from saying yes to God when you don't understand what you're saying yes to.
Right.
Like just a blind okay, God, I am your child, I am your servant, which is what we see Mary doing.
Right.
Because there is real fear in that. They both risked the fear of misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Like they were probably totally misunderstood. Do we risk that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's going to probably be fear of disappointing people because you're going to make choices to worship and follow God in your obedience, and others aren't going to understand. And people are going to go, I don't like that. And could lose relationships.
I mean, and not just relationship, like you could lose a lot of things.
Right.
Your status, they did. Your security, they did. Control, they did.
Right.
Like
The big fear.
there's a lot to lose. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so even with the fear is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is a big question. And I could do that, but what am I going to get out of it? We always weigh it out. What's the good in this and what's the bad? And is it going to be worth it at the end of it? And typically God's in control. Yes.
It's going to be good, but it's going to be hard.
But it's hard. Obedience doesn't remove fear. You're still going to have that fear. It teaches us how to move through things, good and bad, with God.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part of this story.
Yeah. So we're going to encourage everyone to try one small task of obedience to God this week. Maybe it's to speak a truth that you've been avoiding.
Yeah.
That's hard.
That's very hard.
Yeah.
Maybe it's setting some boundaries, and that's kind of been highlighted of what's going on, and set some boundaries to be able to put God more of the focus.
Yeah. Release control. Maybe God is asking you to let go of trying to control things that he needs to work out, and you're standing in his way.
Yeah. Saying yes or maybe no to some of those things that feels uncomfortable.
Yeah. So just a little recap. Mary and Joseph remind us that hope doesn't come from perfect conditions. It comes from a surrendered heart. And we don't have to fix everything.
Nope.
They didn't fix everything. They also didn't explain themselves to everyone.
No.
And so we don't have to explain every decision, because it's probably going to look crazy to the world when we say yes to God in radical obedience. It's going to look crazy, and people are going to ask us, what in the world are you doing? Why are you choosing this and not something safer? Sometimes the most holy thing that we can do is to say yes quietly to God and then release it to him.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yep. Very hard. Very hard. And the same God that entrusted Mary and Joseph in the hope of the world and is also present in your home today, is also involved in our lives each and every day. And he's still building hope through us, and with one faithful yes at a time.
Yeah. So we have created, and it will be linked in the show notes, a Christmas Eve Bible reading, reflection, prayer time that you can do together as a family. It's printable. You can print it if you would like. It's just a PDF. Or you could just open it and do it together. It's designed to do like by candlelight or by your Christmas tree, just something to really focus on the Bible story, the story of Jesus, and to bring us out of the commercial chaos and just focus on who Jesus was and the hope that he offers us.
Yeah. We also encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this episode, as others may be struggling through some understanding and needing some hope. And they're walking through some hard times and just need to hear it's okay to say yes and be obedient to God through these hard times.
Yeah. So if you would like to find support for yourself, or if someone you know is looking for support or coaching, maybe you're navigating a costly yes, trying to navigate obedience well. Maybe you're having trouble setting boundaries, or you're in a transition. We would love to offer you coaching services, curatedcoalition.com. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. My hope is that you leave here reminded that whatever you're facing, you're not crushed, abandoned, or destroyed. That's the promise of 2 Corinthians 4:8 and 9 and the heartbeat of hope through the hard. Visit curatedcoalition.com for all of our coaching services or to book your free consultation. We'll see you next time.